Hey everybody, welcome back to Blacklist Universe. This is Mike S. Miller, your comic book professional artist, 33 years now in the industry, Marvel, DC, Game of Thrones, all that stuff. I've been doing the Marvel Rivals character redesigns and even doing the DC Rivals designs, and today I'm doing an independent comic called Horsemen from Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett, brought to you by RIPPAVERSE. I'll put the link in the description if you want to go check it out for yourself. But Horseman is a character created by Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett, as I said, both comic book industry legends. Chuck Dixon brought us some of the best Batman and Robin and a lot of the great DC stuff. Created Bane, for those of you who don't know. And now he's doing a lot of independent work. And one of the books he's doing is called Horsemen from Rippaverse. And so I'm taking the basic Horseman design. I'm trying not to deviate too far away from the design Joe Bennett has done for the book, but I am giving it that Marvel Rivals spin. So I've got sort of the really broad-shouldered, V-shaped chest, a little cartoonishly huge anatomical structure here, and just sort of using that overall motif with the Horseman basic design. I did mech tech him up a little bit so that he fits more in the Rivals milieu, if I can use that strange French word on you guys. Geez, I hope I'm using it correctly. I'm not French. So yeah, I've beefed up his arms and his legs a little bit to go with his beefy shoulders and just give it that sort of Joe Madureira sort of feel. And then I'm over exaggerating a little bit on some of the design elements to give it a little bit more cartoony of a design. It's kind of a weird mishmash, isn't it? Because I draw very, very realistically, generally speaking, but then at the same time, when you give things these little anime flares, just adding the anime, that's what was so genius about when Joe Mad really came into his own stylistically. He started off as sort of an Arthur Adams clone, and then he started integrating a lot of the the Capcom stylization into his work, and he created this sort of unique style that really brought him to the fore of the mid 90s comic book scene. A lot of people ended up, copying him. I wanted to do some of that Joe Mad magic back in the early 90s too. It didn't really suit my general style, but it was still fun to play around with. I am more of a realistic character. So if I was going to even use sort of that more anime stylistic sprinkles in my work, it would still lend, I think, a little more towards the realism than even what Joe Madureira was doing. So, I mean, it's funny. I look at some of the stuff that Joe does, and I'm like, I get it. It's the rule of cool. It doesn't matter if it's like anatomically correct. The cool factor has to override the part of your brain that says, I want everything to look right. And I don't think I could ever get quite where he would be on a design, or not a design, but on the anatomy of character. Like when he draws Wolverine, he'll draw him with wrists that are like as wide as the palm of his hand. And yes, it looks cool, but it's like, to me, my brain doesn't work like that. My brain won't allow me to delve that far into the exaggeration of anatomy. And so maybe I will never be as cool as him, but at least it's a fun exercise to kind of take that style and play around with it for these designs on the Marvel Rivals, because I can't deny using that basic sort of stylization template, which is what they're doing. They are really all of the Marvel Rivals designs. I mean, you look at them and you're like, okay, they're definitely using Joe Madureira design concepts in what they're doing there. And that's fine, I mean, it's not just fine, it's cool. It does look cool. He has been a great influence on this entire industry. He was an influence on me for a little while there in the 90s, but then I kind of stepped back and away. And really, if you look at my usual work, I am more influenced by guys like Alan Davis and by Carlos Pacheco. Rest in peace, Carlos. I really do like just that more grounded stylization, which, some people might find it boring. Whatever. I guess I'm just stuck in my ways. But I've always been, like, ever since I was a kid, able to sort of mimic other people's styles. In fact, like early on in my career, I did a Gravestone cover, and I did it in a full-on Sam Keith style, just for fun. And I made Gravestone look like he was drawn by Sam Keith. And I didn't do it because like, oh, I'm going to start being Sam Keith. I did it just because it's fun to copy other people's styles. And honestly, if you are an artist and you are searching for a style yourself, sort of to set yourself apart, it's actually a very good technique to develop your own style is doing style studies of other people's work. That is to say, you just take an image and like legitimately, well, okay, don't trace it, but copy it like as well as you can. And this is a very standard like classical painting sort of thing. People do painting studies of other people's paintings where they just try to replicate the other person's painting to the best of their ability. That works in comics too. When you're trying to seek out a style you want to do. It's not to say I think that you should just crib other people's styles completely, right? But you take a little bit of John Byrne, and you take a little bit of Arthur Adams, and you take a little bit of Jim Lee, and you take a little bit of Joe Madureira, and you incorporate all of these different ideas into your personal style. And people might be able to pick out, oh, you got those eyes from Mike Turner, or you got those hands from John Byrne, right? And that's fine. But ultimately, if you're able to study and understand the whys of how people put things together, of why they do certain stylistic choices in their styles. And then you can even notice, like, you can go back and you can see the lineage of where they got it. Like, if you look at Joe's stuff, you can see where he got influence, unless you're unfamiliar with the influences. And then you can also always go back. It's like, oh, okay, Joe was influenced by Arthur Adams. Why don't I go back and also do a style study on Arthur Adams? Redraw a few pieces of his, or draw a character referencing Arthur Adams' work so that you're trying to draw in his style. And then do it to whatever. Say you like you have 6 favorite comic book illustrators. Well, go in there and take illustrations of each of them and do studies. And then after you do the studies of all of those, then go and try to apply. Why is it I like this guy's hands the most? Why is it I like this guy's chest structure the most? Figure out why you like the parts of each artist that you like. And when you draw it, you go back and you draw your own. The influences that you've collected may congeal into a style that you find aesthetically pleasing for yourself and also unique, because you're not, look, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, right? No one has to reinvent the wheel. Everyone has the ability to reference, and everyone does. Don't let anybody think they're just pulling an original style out of their butt. That's not how this works. Everyone is influenced by other artists, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So don't be ashamed of it either. It's like, yes, you love John Byrne? Go draw some John Byrne stuff. Just don't end up only referencing one artist, because otherwise all you're being is a clone. And honestly, you know what? Fans might not care or notice, but your peers will notice. And in general, you're not going to get the respect of your peers by cloning other artists. If you don't care about the respect of your peers, you just want to be a total fanboy clone, go for it. I mean, do your thing. You'll always find an editor who will look at your art and say, whoa, you draw just like this other popular artist. I can get you for 1/3 of the price of the popular artist, so I'll hire you to fool people into thinking that the popular artist is the guy drawing our stuff. See, that's why you get disrespected by other artists, because you're not doing this on your own. You're essentially riding the coattails of someone who's already made. And I know you might not be intending to do it. You just are such a fanboy that you love that person's art. I get that. I totally do. But you're riding coattails. Point blank, you're riding coattails. And you don't want to ride coattails. If you're an artist, you want to come into your own. So, again, even if it's just like 2 artists, you want to bash Mark Silvestri and Art Adams together, then bash them together. As long as you're not just cloning one artist, then you should be good to go. But personally, I think you should take as many styles or study as many styles as there are artists that you like. If you just really love an artist, study his art. It's the way it's been for thousands of years. Well, I don't know about thousands of years. Probably thousands of years, right? If you go to Italy, they study sculpture by copying other masters' sculptures. Point blank. They study art by copying other masters' art. They'll even, a lot of like life drawing classes, you'll go in and you'll sketch the sculptures of somebody else. So this totally applies to our field as well. And I don't just mean comic book artists, any kind of illustrator that you want to be in this sort of pop culture realm, actually in any realm, any art. Don't try to do it alone. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. We stand, once again, on the shoulders of giants. Take advantage of it. You'll reach much higher recognizing that than if you just think you're going to be that one phenom who just closes his eyes and imagines a whole new style that no one has ever seen anything like before. I guarantee you, even the most original artists that you can think of, they were influenced too. They were. They may have gotten influences from outside of the industry you're used to, right? It's like, I think like Adam Hughes was probably the first, if not one of the first, to reach into the Alphonse Mucha illustrations and bring that stylization into comic books. Oh, you had guys like Brian Stelfreeze. I think he was the first guy to reach back and J.C. Leyendecker stylization into comic books. These classic illustrators and these classic artists, their influence hadn't yet been seen in comic book illustrations before. You can do that. If you want to, you can look back through time at all the great illustrators and all the great painters and artists, and you can incorporate all of those styles into your work and then generate something that people think is new and original, but really you're doing the exact same thing that everybody else is doing. You're just sourcing different influences. Anyways, I feel like this was more of an art class than it was me talking about the Horseman, but the Horseman is a really cool sort of street level, somewhat of a vigilante. I toned down his color scheme a little bit because when you have, and this is just color theory, when you tone down different colors, they don't clash as much. It's like yellow and blue, very bright, very stark, but this is sort of a street level, quote unquote, nighttime character. So I felt like toning it down or desaturating it is what I really mean, makes it work better than giving a brightly saturated character in sort of a, like I said, nighttime vigilante schema. So anyways, that's Horseman. If you want to know more about Horseman, just go to RIPPAVERSE.com. You can find him there, find out more about him, and order the book. It's a big, fat book. I have a copy of it right here, and it's a really good read. So I do encourage you to do that. Stick around. Let me know what you want in the comments section. If you have suggestions for the next video, I might do some more independent characters if this does well enough. How would you like your independent comic to be envisioned as a Rivals character? Let me know in the comment section. Please do subscribe if you have not already, and hopefully I will see all of you on the next video.